I shall never agree to a representative form of government because I consider it harmful to the people whom God has entrusted to my care. These are the words of last Tsar of Russia, and today we are going to discuss Russian Revolution. When we talk about Russian Revolution, we often talk about the last revolution, which is commonly known as the October Revolution. But few people know that there were revolutions before this last revolution as well. So let us talk about the revolution which occurred in 1905. And we are going to start with the reasons that led to a revolution in 1905. It was the most impoverished country in 1900, and there was a growing minority of poor industrial workers. And also one of the key reasons is the fact that Russian Empire practiced serfdom, which is a form of feudalism in which landless peasants were forced to serve land-owning nobility. But in 1861, the Russian Empire abolished serfdom, thus liberating the serfs. So by this point, I am trying to come to a conclusion that there were people who were somehow working, although in bad conditions, or they were tied to some nobility. But for 40 years, they were not being tied to anyone, and they were free. And in 1900, Russia was the most impoverished country, and the industrial workers, they were getting poorer and poorer. And from 1890 to 1910, the population of major cities, they were doubled, and as a result, it led to poor working conditions. Now, we all know that in the 19th century, mid of the 19th century, there were Crimean Wars. We are not going to discuss Crimean wars today. And those wars occurred they started in the year 1854 and ended in 1856. But few people know that at the start of the 20th century, Japan was a superpower, and Japan was locking horns with most of the Asian countries. It was trying to invade China. It was trying to lock heads with Russia, etc. So there was a Russo-Japanese war in the year 1904, and it proved to be very costly for the Russians. So it was also one of the major reasons for 1905 Russian Revolution. And then we know that the food shortages, they were very severe at the start of the 20th century. In 1905, it was the largest protest by Russian workers, and we all know that it led to Bloody Sunday massacre. However, after 1905, Nicholas II promised the formation of Dumas. Now, we commonly use this word Dumas. It is a sort of parliament, you can say. And moving forward from 1905, let us discuss the causes of February Revolution, which occurred in 1917. At first, the Russian involvement in World War I, it proved to be very costly. There were 400,000 casualties, and there was the usual high prices of commodities. The inflation, it was quite high, and there was food shortages, and Russia suffered the highest number of casualties in World War I. And also, when the nobility was busy in wars, the wife of the Tsar, Tsarina, she began firing administrative officials on the advice of Rasputin, who is a very prominent figure whenever you study Russian Revolution, and I want you to go out and study about Rasputin. And then the third cause of 1917 revolution was the repeated dissolution of Dumas. They were repeatedly dissolved because there was a lot of disconnect and there was no trust among various people who were in Dumas. And that leads us to talk about the February Revolution. So demonstrators clamoring for bread took out to streets, and on March 2, troops called to muffle the uprising. And finally, Nicholas abdicated the throne. On March 12, Duma formed, a major Duma formed, and it was a sort of provincial government. And a very prominent figure, Alexander Kerensky, who was the leader of the provincial government, established a liberal program. He talked about equality, freedom, and union, and he was basically against violent social reforms. This leads us to the October Revolution. Now, that happened on the 24th and 25th of the Julian calendar, and November 6 and November 7 of the Georgian calendar, in which Lenin, a very prominent historical figure, he launched a bloodless coup against provincial government, and Lenin installed soldiers. He installed soldiers, peasants, and workers in the provincial government, displacing the bourgeois capitalist class. And from then on, what we see is complete bloodshed. The Russian Civil War started in 1917 and ended in 1923. And basically, the Russians were divided between the Red and the White Army, and 2 million soldiers died, along with 9 million civilians. And the civilians died of typhus epidemic and hunger as well. And in 1922, finally, Soviet Union was formed with the slogan of bread, peace, land. So there were a lot of impacts on Russia and rest of the world as well. The first impact is the fact that the character of the nationalist revolutions in the colonial world. They were given a new social and economic content. We know that in the 20th century, the British Empire was controlling major chunks of the world, and seeing a revolution happening in Russia, people living under the colonial rule, they got, I must use the word, excited, and they started to look towards their own revolution as well. Secondly, the cult of the common man emerged in the political field. Before the revolution, Russian Revolution, we do not see anything that defines a common man. But after the Russian Revolution, a cult was formed, which had its impact afterwards as well. But finally, a common man started to think as a whole as well. So most of the people, they started to relate to that common identity, or a cult, or they wanted to be a part of that cult that happens to talk about the common man. It basically emerged, that cult emerged after the Russian Revolution. And then the conception of the 5-year plan in the economic planning emerged. We all know that Stalin and the Soviet Union repeatedly gave the 5-year plans time and again. Either they, whether they succeeded or not, that's a different discussion. But it was them who, for the first time, started to give that 5-year plan in the economic sphere. And the world started to divide into communist and anti-communist blocs. We see that it had a huge impact. The Russian Revolution had a huge impact on the overall character of the European political sphere. And it also basically started a discussion in China, in the subcontinent as well. The Russian Revolution, it eventually gave some sort of we can say it gave Russia some sort of seat in the global world. because before that the people were mostly controlled by nobility, and they were impoverished, and they lack some ideal, or they lack something to go something to live for. And afterwards, after the Russian Revolution, they when the cult of common man is created, and the slogan of bread, peace, and land was raised, people started to look towards something, and the rest of the world, it was impacted from that as well. We all know that what happened in World War II, and it gave to the rise of Cold War, and then the Russian Empire finally collapsed, Soviet Union finally collapsed, and because of their economic and political policies. That's a different discussion. But at the end of the day, after the Russian Revolution, people started to look towards something. They were basically so impoverished. They saw so many things for the past few decades, that they finally thought that now would be the time for their betterment. But that ended in a disaster as well. We all know that the Soviet Union collapsed, their 5-year plans didn't work, and the Russia started to focus mostly on building arms, and at the end of the day, it did not put its efforts towards the betterment of the common man. And as a result, what happened in the 20th century, at the when the Soviet Union broke, we all know that what happened. Number of countries emerged from there. So Stalin came in 1927, and he set 2 extraordinary goals for Soviet domestic policy. The first goal was rapid industrialization, and second is the collectivization of agriculture. The rapid industrialization plan was adopted in 1928 during the first 5-year plan, and it called for emphasis on heavy industry, and all industry and services were nationalized, and it created a major problem. With the greatest share of resources put into heavy industry, shortage of consumer goods started to occur, and the collectivization of agriculture, it was also done to concentrate most of the efforts to make arms. But it displaced more than 1 million wealthiest peasants, that collectivization of agriculture, and those peasants, they were commonly known as kulaks households. They were deported. So forced collectivization proved very disastrous, and it led to a famine in 1932, and the famine lasted for a year, and by 1940, approximately 97% of all the peasant households, the kulaks, they had been collectivized, and private ownership of the property ended. So basically, this did not turn out very well for Soviet Union and for the Russians. They were hopeful that a positive change would occur, but eventually it ended in disaster as well. I hope you have liked today's discussion. Please support us by liking our channel, and subscribing our channel and liking our videos. I hope you have liked it today. Take care of yourself. Bye.